Please be seated. First, I have to say I had not considered this. That's a lot easier to read at this service since I'm not wearing long robes and I don't have to pray the long prayers today. Caroline gets that one. That's a whole lot easier to read. It's a fascinating gospel lesson that we have today for a number of different reasons. My hunch is most of you have heard this before. There's sort of a different angle I want you to consider today. And I'll just sort of talk for a minute about how I got there. I had been considering a couple of things this week, but it was made concrete for me yesterday. I went with some of you yesterday over to Mayport and worked on a Habitat for Humanity build. There are people in this congregation, but also at the other congregations who were there. And it was a beautiful day and lovely work that was hard for me, not necessarily for others, but I'm sore today. It was wonderful. There are a couple things that I saw out there. One is it was a Christ Church work day, and we were all kind of organized to work together. But there were people from Christ Church that were there working on other houses for different people, and they were there out of the goodness of their heart because they saw something, an opportunity to do something beautiful. They didn't tell anybody they were going with Christ Church or anything like that. One in particular, one of her employees is moving into one of the Habitat houses, and she went to paint walls there. Then there were those of us who were there from Christ Church who just gave up a Saturday, as so many of you do in so many different ways, to simply do something beautiful for someone else and to share in beauty and in love. It was phenomenal. It was sit there and talk to other people who were doing this work. It was just phenomenal. So I had this morning of beauty, and then I came home exhausted and did what a lot of us do, and hopped on the couch and flicked open my phone and started scrolling on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all these things, and for whatever reason, and maybe it's just a blessing that it happened this way, as I scrolled through, everything that I saw on social media was the exact opposite of what I had just experienced as real, right? Everything I saw was political infighting and backbiting between people that were among my friends, and denigrating of entire swaths of humanity, all for the sake of putting a little status up and hoping to get somebody to click on it and say they liked it. It was a little bit unsettling, but it recalled to me today's gospel as well as another story that I'll mention in a moment. It was the contrast between what I saw that morning as real and beautiful and truthful, and what, for at least one moment on my social media feeds, showed me a part of the world that was something other than as beautiful and loving as I had seen that morning, that made me stop in my tracks and consider. And what I consider is this, that Jesus was teaching his disciples today, in addition to many other things, how to look, how to see what was real and beautiful and true and good, what was authentic, what was worth looking at. And it wasn't the people in the fancy robes with the perfect life showing everybody how great they were. It was this one unnoticeable woman doing something true, right? He taught them how to see that. It reminded me of another story that is a parable of sorts for this sort of thing that came out this past week. And I'll go ahead and preface this by saying that this young woman says a lot that's right. She said a few things that are very, very wrong. We won't get into all that. Just listen to the parable of this young girl named Asina. Some of you probably heard her story, Asina O'Neill, a young woman from Australia. She had hundreds of thousands of people who followed her Instagram account in particular. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you are thinking, what is Instagram? Don't worry about it so much. Hundreds of thousands of people electronically saw what she displayed, right? And she built a life upon displaying a particular form of perfection to them. And then all of a sudden last week, she turned on a dime. And she went back and deleted thousands of pictures of perfection. And those that she did not delete, she changed the caption so that people could see what was real behind the picture. So there are a couple of examples. Eric, if you'll throw one of them up. Eric, can you get a picture? The picture guy isn't here. Eric's doing dual duty back there. So this is actually the one that I really want to focus on, that last one. This is a picture of her from a night that she was going to a formal, I think, in high school. And she's got this beautiful white dress on in that other picture. And although I'm sure that's a beautiful white dress too. It's probably. She's got this beautiful dress on, and the new caption reads, "This isn't real life. I was paid to wear this dress. I spent countless amounts of time and energy trying to look hot for social media, basically. And the truth is, I felt miserable and alone that night, and this is fake." She took off the long white robes and stopped trying to sit at the honorable place at the banquet, right? And she said, "That isn't real." She's pushed on something that a lot of us know, and again, she did what a lot of us do when we suddenly confront something about ourselves that seems less honest than it did before. And she said, "It's social media's fault." I'm pretty sure she got that part wrong. She said social media is a lie. In fact, she was living a lie, and she was using social media to show that, right? Just kind of to go on record for that. But we do this with each other, with or without social media. We spend time and energy showing others the inauthentic version of ourselves for whatever reason, because we want them to see that and like it, or because we don't want them to see what is behind it. Jesus says of the scribes in today's gospel that is worthy of the greater condemnation. That's not the kind of life that Jesus came into the world to free us to live with one another. I've said this before with you. I'll sort of say it one more time as a thing to perhaps write down. Jesus never gets angry with anyone about their sin. He gets furious with people when they pretend like they're perfect or they have no sin. He spends so much time talking about hypocrisy, and hypocrisy is not just saying one thing and doing another. That's a lack of integrity, maybe. Hypocrisy is showing the world that you are something and being something different. That's what the scribes were doing. It literally comes from a Greek word that talked about how actors on stage would use a mask and show the world, depict themselves as something different than what they were. Jesus takes his disciples and says, "Stop looking at that. Stop looking at this and pretending like it's real. That's not real. What's behind it?" He teaches them to look. Thank you, Eric. Now, I'm convinced with these disciples that if they had continued that day to watch that widow and to see what is real, it wouldn't have been this one glorious moment alone, right? I bet had they continued, and I wouldn't be surprised if they kept an eye on her for a little bit longer. She goes and she puts her 2 pennies in, but I bet they watched her walk away and struggle to eat that day. And I bet they watched her walk away, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if she had a moment of grief. Doesn't say how long she had been a widow, but I know a lot of widows, and from day to day, no matter how long, grief comes back into our lives, right? They would have seen her at probably her best moment and at her worst that day if they had looked. I truly think Jesus would have said to them, "It's worth it to keep looking." Look at what's real, not at what's fake. Show yourselves as what is real instead of what is a lie. Mark frequently paints with a fairly negative brush, and so Mark highlights Jesus' words that the scribes in this scene will receive the greater condemnation. I wonder if he could paint with a more positive brush for us, if he wouldn't say, if you don't live your lives that way, you'll receive the greater blessing. If you learn how to see the way I am teaching you to see, with love, with hope, with joy, if you learn how to see what is real behind the mask that we put up, you will be blessed. And if you learn how to show other people what's behind your mask, instead of the illusion that we try to create with one another, I promise you, you will be blessed. That doesn't mean it will be easy or it will be free from pain. In fact, it won't be. Jesus himself knew that quite well. But you will receive the greater blessing. I bring that up for a number of different reasons. One is so that we can start practicing that together, though, in our lives, but especially in this community. I promise you, we will all fail at it, and we will hurt each other if we do it. That's why we do a thing called forgiveness, and we practice that too. But we've got to get to a place, where we stop in church on Sunday or any other day. We stop showing each other what's fake in our lives or pretend like we're the scribes who have it all together. And we don't. We've got to learn how to see ourselves and one another the way that God sees us, so that we can share in the blessing that comes from being able to see the kingdom of God with our own eyes. And it's going to take practice. So there are a couple of little pieces of that practice that I want to mention to you today. Sermon done. At least the words are. Here are a couple of things. One, I'll go ahead and make this announcement. At the announcements time, when Mother Caroline's telling you about what's going on in the church, a few of you are going to be passing around clipboards to collect email addresses. We've done this trying to capture it with text messages on the screen and so on and so forth. About 50 or so of you are receiving emails from this church so that you can know what's going on a little bit more with ministry here and be connected. That means about 100 on any given Sunday aren't receiving those emails. You can decide you don't want to. That's okay. Or if you've already signed up, then by all means, don't do this. But those clipboards are just an opportunity for you to say, I've got a pen in my hand, I've got this paper, I want to be a little bit more engaged. Consider that. What we're doing right now, for instance, in those emails is just letting you know a little bit more about these amazing folks who sit up here and lead worship every single Sunday, and some of you don't even know who they are, right? Or if you know who they are by their stage name, you don't know, for instance, this past week, you might not know that Lou's married and has 2 beautiful children, right? You got to see a beautiful picture of Lou and his family in that email. You missed it. So sorry. It's never going to happen again. So that's one thing. Another thing that I talked with Leela about, and I bet Leela's downstairs in newcomers. Yeah, she is. Okay, good. So I'll just say it on behalf of myself. Everybody in this church has the opportunity every single Sunday to wear a name tag so that we don't have to be fake with each other about who we are or fake with each other about learning each other's names. And the vast majority of us don't wear our name tags, myself included. And some of us don't have them, or we lost them, or whatever else. So I'll tell you this. Normally those things have a cost associated with them. I will buy your name tag. Quite serious. I don't care how much it costs me. I will buy your name tag, and if you don't want to keep it, I'll keep it here in the church in a drawer so that every Sunday when you come here, you can put it on. And if you have a name tag already and you just want to opt into that whole keeping it in a drawer thing, I'll do that for you too. We will do that. Because it's important when you turn around and you shake somebody's hand during the piece, or you meet somebody out at coffee hour, or you sit after the service and you just chat, and you run into that thing where you say, oh, I've totally met this person about 100 times, but I can't remember his name. That we remove whatever obstacle there is so that you can know that person's name, because eventually what will happen is you get to know that person's soul, and you get to see what is beautiful and what is behind the mask the more that you decide you want to look, and the more that they decide they can trust us as a community enough to show it. Does that make sense? Opting in? Good. All right, last thing, and then we'll be done. please. We won't be done. Last thing. Every Sunday, we pass the peace. What we do is we stand up and we turn around and we shake the hands of people around us or give them a hug or greet them somehow. And what we say is, the peace of the Lord be always with you. It's an opportunity for us to share from within our very souls the peace of Christ that is in here with the peace of Christ that exists in the other person too. To just sort of display that holiness to one another. It's not a particularly easy time to do any sort of social interaction with one another, and it can be a little bit strange and awkward, right? It's a beautiful, beautiful thing, though. So here's what I would like for you to do. At the peace today, pass the peace. But right now, and I know this is risky for Episcopalians especially, the frozen chosen. Right now, I invite you to please stand up and look around you. Find somebody you don't know, even if you think you know them. Say hello and tell them your name.
Hi, guys. Hi.
A rowdy bunch, huh?
Jesse Cruz. What's up,
Yep.
there? Where's my name tag?
I'll go get armed. Let's take a courtesy. Oh man, why are you guys gonna force me to social now?
Apart from your beautiful singing, that is one of the most joyful noises I've ever heard out of this group of people. Truly, that was beautiful. I hope that you felt good about that. I know it was probably hard, and maybe from time to I just said hello to Ruth Dean that I've talked to literally 100 times, and you've been in classes on Wednesday nights and everything else, and I thought, you're the dean daughter, and I forgot your first name. I'm really sorry, right? It's okay. That's how we're supposed to feel when we come together, joyfully greeting one another in the name of the Lord and sharing glimpses of what is real and what's beautiful about one another. I thank you for doing it now. I hope that every Sunday you come back, you'll do something like that, and I hope that you will help all of us together become a little bit more of the community that God has asked us to be, and see a little bit more and show a little bit more about what's real in your life, so that each one of us can see and feel and know the greater blessing that God is bestowing upon us. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen.